Today we're going to be breaking down some fun lore details from episode 4 of Helluva Boss. This episode was interesting to me because we got quite a few lore drops in it, with some of them seeming quite random. For instance, when Loopty is about to burst into the IMP office, the gang has a talk about Hellshakes, with Millie and Luna being a bit freaked out, and despite the ground shaking, Moxie standing firm on his belief that there is no such thing as Hellshakes. The question is, why is this something of a debate? It gives the impression that Hellshakes are something that were said to have happened a long time ago, and while Hell does have a lot of long-living elites and immortal sinners, the Imps and Hellhounds possibly live lifespans so short that they just didn't experience any Hellshakes in their lifetimes, and it became something of a legend to them, not quite believing stories that people had from hundreds or maybe even thousands of years ago since they weren't there to see it. It makes me wonder if one of these two shows will be having a plotline involving a real Hellshake at some point, or if one will be revealed as an important part of Hell's history and mythology. When Blitz agrees to take on Loopty as a client, he warns Loopty that if they kill his business partner, that he will likely be in hell with Loopty, and he'll have no way to really avoid him. This is interesting because we never hear Blitz give this speech to anyone else, and it should be something of a warning they all get. Heck, Blitz himself should be warning his employees about this issue, as the more people they kill, the more enemies that they will have in hell who want revenge on them for cutting their lives so short. I have previously theorized that at some point in the show, some climactic finale perhaps, that Blitz and the IMP gang will be hunted down by the sinners that they killed as part of their job, all working together, and it would be really interesting to see how the Imps deal with that conflict considering the sinners are now immortal but the Imp gang are not. We also got this look at Blitz on his poster with his sister. I've talked this one to death, but to keep it short, the original poster from the pilot referred to Blitz's circus act as the Imp siblings, and included a third sibling named Tilla. Tilla was later reimagined as a mother to both Blitz and Barbie Wire, with Blitz's iconic face scar being removed in this new version of the poster, indicating that he didn't get the injury that caused the scar until sometime after this circus act with his sister. In the flashback showing how Loopty died, we see that he and his partner Lyle created a machine that should reverse the aging process, but accidentally set it forward. This raised a lot of questions from fans on why Lyle, who did survive, didn't simply use the machine to de-age himself, as this was initially the point of the machine and why he went in it. As of now, this is viewed as something of a plot hole from fans, but it's not something lore-centric and just the writers having fun. The IMP gang of course takes the mission, but get a thrill at the idea that their client will kill themselves instead, something ruined by the Cherubs coming in and trying to convince him to live. Ultimately, he decides he wants to live after realizing that these spiritual beings are fighting for the fate of his life, but is immediately killed by a falling piano. Despite his death, Blitz claims they failed their job, which seems to be because Loopty specifically wanted his business partner to end up in hell with him, not to simply die and go wherever his soul may want. This may be why the Imps were set on having Lyle kill himself as opposed to simply murdering him as usual, indicating that killing himself is in fact a surefire way to go to hell in the Hazbin Hotel universe, though Lyle Dills did end up in hell anyways, of course. I also want to talk about the Cherubs and their weapons. Until this episode, the only weapon we knew that angels had were the ones that were used in the annual extermination, where the exorcists come down to hell and slaughter as many demons as they can, presumably earthborn sinners more than imps and the like, as earthborn sinners are immortal, and this is done to help with hell's overpopulation issue. Some fans speculated on whether or not these weapons the Cherubs had were the same kind of weapon, but so far the evidence seems to say no. In the Hazbin Hotel pilot, the only weapons we see are spears, though Vivzipop has indicated that other weapons do exist. If not from the angels, then from the demons of hell. In the pilot, we can see some of the spears left behind being picked up by some demons, which Vivzipop already had explained would then be sold on the black market and or melted down to become a new kind of weapon, which Moxie explains in episode 5 has changed the way that hell handles its wars. The angelic weapons tend to be melted down and used to enhance guns as well as their bullets, making them great for assassinating other demons like striker attempts, not just immortal sinners, but royal elites like Stolas too. We can see here that the white color of the spears is maintained, and with the Cherubs only having golden arrows, there is no reason to assume that they are as powerful as the weapons that the exterminators use, which makes sense as the Cherubs had no reason to believe they would run into demons while working, let alone immortal sinners which could only be killed with such a weapon. But it does leave me wondering what special powers, if any, that these golden heart-shaped arrows have. They almost look like a weapon that a Cupid might have to make people fall in love. And Millie and Moxie do end up making out, so maybe they got hit by those arrows. The Cherubs are introduced as a sort of inversion of the Imps story-wise, not just in that they are a trio who goes up to Earth on behalf of dead clients, but the Cherubs even live in a town called Cherub Town, just as the Imps live in Imp City in the Pride Ring. But VivziePop has said that heaven will not be simply an inversion of hell, so while these similarities are cool, it doesn't mean we'll also find out that there are 7 rings of heaven, for instance, each ruled over by a prince embodying one of the 7 virtues, though I think that would be a cool development. The Cherubs themselves may not even be Hell's equivalent of Imps as a species, and with the diversity of animals that they all can be modeled after, as well as humans, I don't imagine that they are one true species in the way we think of Imps as species, and if they received a demon form when traveling to Hell, I imagine the sheeps and goats would still look like sheeps and goats, even if it was a bit more demonic. Finally, when Cherubs try to leave Earth and go back to heaven, they do so simply by hand-waving a little portal open. They are of course kicked out, but it raises the question of how they specifically travel to Earth. We know the demons use Stolas' grimoire, and I imagine that this council of Cherubs have their own similar item that allowed our 3 main Cherubs to travel to Earth. They likely got some sort of signal that the Cherubs were returning and opened the portal simply to inform them that they are not allowed back in because of all the deaths that were caused. There is quite a bit more we could say about what this episode teaches us about heaven and angels, but I did a full video breaking down just those aspects last week. You can go ahead and click right here to watch it. I once did a survey on which Helluva Boss episode was everyone's favorite, and was surprised to find that episode 4 was at the bottom of the list. Each episode of Helluva Boss is iconic in its own way. Each always takes place with a new character, or in a new ring, or on a unique mission, or some combination of these things that make each episode stand out. And with this episode having such a unique mission with a new rival gang up on Earth, it is actually among my favorite episodes. It's an episode that really builds out the lore for heaven. The missions on Earth are already a fun break from the stylization of Hell's locations, but being able to have other supernatural beings to interact with while on these Earth missions definitely elevates the formula, I think. And before we wrap this up, if you like the cartoon Arcane, we're doing a live stream Q&A with some of the voice casts on January 29th, and we are selling autograph prints from those voice actors through Streamly. I'll put a link in a pinned comment down below to all the information on the event. I hope you'll join us. See you guys next time.